There we go. What is going on, everybody? How you guys doing today? Welcome to another Pixel stream. My name is Ian, aka Ire Sculpts, and I am a toy artist. I'm a 3D sculptor for the toy industry. I can always never get my intro right. Hopefully, you guys are doing all right. And we're going to hopefully be finishing up our current project. But first, real quick, just want to kind of get this out the way. You guys know what's happening here. If you guys are new to YouTube or the Twitch channel or even the Facebook, don't forget to like, subscribe, or follow so that way we know what's going on and you guys know when we go live so you know what we know, we know, you know. And that, if it's not confusing, should be. Anyway, so make sure to hit that sub. What is up, Inspire? What's up, Chris? And also, too, one last little tidbit thing, real quick, guys. The Pixologic Summit is coming, so you guys are gonna want to register. You guys are gonna want to check this out. It's gonna be on October 23rd through the 26th, and we're doing a sculpt off. I'm gonna be participating as well. So come on in, guys. Come in, hang out with me, all that good stuff. More will come on that. Now that that's out of the way, let's get into it. Looking forward to this one, Ian. I hurt my hand and can't work, so I need a work by proxy. Dude, oh my gosh. That's sorry to hurt your hand, man. That's a bummer. Well, hopefully I will make up for that in a little bit of entertainment and joy and you know, self-doubt, all that good stuff. Yeah, don't worry about it. I'm here for you. So this is where we're at. This is what we were doing. Happy Sunday, by the way. So we have been doing the Bokoblin statue, like a Talus stone statue, for the last month, and pretty much I wanted to make a really just big piece. And so each stream I've been just making sure that I do a little bit between the week and then I kind of tell you what's going on. And then we kind of do more stuff online as I take your questions. And I think this has turned out really, really good. We've used a lot of things from dynamic cloth to just quickly how to block out characters to texturing. And today I want to cover a little bit of painting. I want to make a few things and hopefully wrap this up. So Carbon 444, what's happening, dude? It is going. It is going, man. So I'm excited. Let's get into this thing. So what I did do during the week, just to catch you guys up, is I made a couple crates, and then I spent some more time making my own brushes to texture the rock and also the ground. And what I'm going to be doing right now is we're going to be making a chest that will be in the ground as part of the base, and then from there maybe some 3D printable grass. I'm kind of working on an experiment on that one. So we'll be making a grass blade that's thick enough to multiply a bunch of times. So hopefully that will work out really, really well. So let's get into it. Let's make a chest first. So let's actually bake this guy right up here. And just so you know, this project is like 51 million polys. There's a pretty hefty dude. And let's put him right over here. I get a little bit of there. And then let's go ahead and open up a new subtool. And let's make a new chest. So, so Nifty Cat, if you don't mind me asking, how'd you hurt your hands? Everything. Hopefully everything's okay. It's just temporary. That's never any fun. All right, so let's get a cube, and we're going to be making a chest today. So I'm going to initialize this, and I'm going to cube it. So that way it's all the way down here. And turn off that first one. And so we're going to be making a cube. Let's start with a cube, and then let's turn off perspective. And let's kind of crunch that down a little bit. What is up, Snickles? So that way we get kind of a boxy shape. Something like that. Now, we're not going to be making the full chest, but we're going to get pretty close. That way we can decide what detail we want showing, because it'll be buried in the ground. What are my specs for my PC? My PC is, I have an AMD Ryzen 7 5600 CPU, which is a pretty good CPU. For ZBrush, CPU is like king. So you really want to make sure that you have a good CPU. GPU is the GeForce 2080. GeForce, not GeForks. And then I got 48 gigs of RAM. I'm working on a 22-inch Cintiq, and I want to get this thing liquid cool, but it's still air cooled right now. My cat caught his paw trapped in the cat door at like 6 a.m. So I woke up and him screaming, "Oh no!" Went out to help him, grabbed him to make some pressure off his paw, and he bit my thumb. Oh man, ouch! That's insane, dude. Well, rest up, heal up, and I will sculpt double time for you. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, basically, when you're working with ZBrush, the thing to remember is CPU is everything. So AMD Ryzen works really, really well, and I find it to be pretty affordable. I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on Intel, but eventually, for me personally, I even want to upgrade to the 9 or even the Threadripper series, just because of like ZBrush can do so much with a CPU. But you don't need to go that intense unless you do it professionally. So for me, I was running ZBrush on the Ryzen 3 and the Ryzen 5, and I was doing pretty well. Um, I would still get pretty high levels, like 50 million. So you could definitely work with a decent CPU. Okay, let's get that. Now what we're going to do is grab a cylinder real quick, and we're going to make some modifications to this first cylinder. Oh, he's such a good boy. He let go as soon as he realized it was me. Yeah, that's just, man, I have a beardy dragon, and like, if he like falls off, if he like climbs up and falls, I'm like in panic mode, so I relate. All right, we're going to go to initialize, and what we're going to do is actually kind of make this chest shape. And so we're going to modify a few of these things. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the H divide, and we're actually going to divide this by like 6 to like 16. Something like that. We want this center line right in here, like that. We're going to want all this. So, see, 16 or 8. So we're going to make like a low poly chest that we can then manipulate. Let's do 8. Let's do 8. We can always add more later. And then let's go ahead and go make Polymesh 3D. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete loops, which can be found under Geometry, Edge Loop, and Delete Loops. So what that does is it deletes the edge loops that actually don't matter, don't make up the bulk of the subtool. So it will delete anything that's not necessary, but still retains its shape, which is nice. So we're going to have that. And then I'm going to go ahead and actually hide half of this. And let's go ahead and do delete hidden, which that could be found under geometry, modify topology. Sorry, modify topology and delete hidden. There it is. And then let's go ahead and take our subtool and let's copy it. Yo, Ian, how you doing, buddy? What's up, Ryan? How you doing? How am I liking my new headphones, Nichols? I'm loving it, actually. My new headphones are nice. It's the Arctis 7, and it's like floating on my head. It's very, very nice. Hello, Pablo. How you doing, man? So let's copy this, and let's come back to our cube here, and let's paste underneath. Now it's a lot bigger, of course. So let's go to deformation and unify, which will drop it down. And we still need to scale it a bit. Also, too, guys, let me know if it's a little choppy. I feel like we're definitely working within some pretty high polys here. Let's scale this down. Something like that. Kind of bring this up. Let's grab this. Hello, hello. Okay. So this is kind of what we have now. We have the bottom part of the chest and the top part of the chest. And now we're going to go ahead and start manipulating these so that way we can get the look that we're going for. One of the easiest ways is I'm going to solo it real quickly. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close holes. And then I'm going to go groups by normals, which will group everything and give it a different normal. And then we're going to go ahead and increase normals. And so let's get rid of the ones that we don't need. So we're going to bring out the Z modeler, hit BZM, hover over an edge, go to crease. I'm going to get rid of the ones that we didn't need creasing, which will be these right here. So they'll give us this kind of look. What is up, Matt? Hello, buddy. Doing good. How are you? Welcome in, welcome in. We're making a chest right now for our giant character. There we go. And then we'll get to painting, which will be nice. Now, let's go ahead and save as, and let's save a new version. So we got all these versions happening. All right. And everything sounds okay on your guys' end, yeah? Just want to make sure. Okay. All right. So now we have this, and what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead. Actually, you know what? Let me redo this because I actually think I want more topology than that. I've changed my mind, which is not allowed, but I'm going to do it anyway. So let's come back here to our cylinder that we manipulated. Go to initialize, and let's actually put this at 16. Yeah, let's do that. This way, we have just a little bit more topology. So we'll go ahead and do that. Delete hidden, copy, and paste. Send it home, scale it down. Yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit better. Let's go ahead and do close holes, delete loops, which we don't really need to do at the moment. You can hear? Perfect. What's up, Angela? How you doing? Yep, great. Cool, cool. So now we have a little bit more topology here. There we go. And we're still going to go ahead, group by normals, and crease polygons. And that's going to be that. Perfect. I think my headphones are dying. 1 second. Okay, do that. Which has definitely helped. All right, now that we have this, we're going to go ahead and start kind of getting the shapes of our box what we want. What's up, Metal Gear? How you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Okay. We're actually going to kind of hide that for a little bit just so we can see what's going on here. And now what I want to do is actually get the framing of this. I'm not worried about the wood panels yet, but I want to get like the steel framing around it because it's going to be kind of a wooden chest. So what I'm going to do is we're going to grab the Z modeler, hover over an edge. Let's go insert multiple edges. And we're going to get a baseline of what we want as far as thickness goes, which will be perfect. I'm going to want this section right here. I'm trying to make it as even as possible, which that looks pretty good. Now let's come back over here. Let's get rid of the ones that we don't need. You can see now I'm just perfectly framing it all the way around so that I have all of this. Perfect. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is actually make this like a metal panel. I'll make this a metal panel. We'll make this a metal panel. And we'll make this one a metal panel as well. And what we're going to do is actually I'm going to hold over a face. And for those of you who are new to ZModeler, real quick rundown is that whenever you hover over a point, an edge, or a face, you're going to have different options. And so here what I'm doing is I've held Alt, hovered over a face, and selected points that I actually want to group together. And now what I'm going to be doing is actually extruding these sections off and making them a separate subtool that then I can control on its own and apply different material to later. So I'm going to hover over this edge. We're going to go to extrude all polygroup. As I start to drag, if I hold control, you can see now I have a separated mesh. Now obviously I don't want it out that much, so I'm going to go ahead and hold control. And then if I tap Alt, I'll get a different polygroup, which is exactly what I want. So we'll do something like that, and we'll let go. So this will give us little metal brackets we can work with. I'm going to go ahead and highlight these so that they're separate. And if I want to see what's going on completely, I can go to Display Properties and turn on Double. Now I can see everything. And that's good because I didn't realize I grabbed this bottom part. So we can back this up, uncheck that one, do that again. There we go. Grab that. Let's turn on Double. Perfect. And now what we're going to do is go up to Subtool and split hit it. I am working on Throg in the lounge if y'all want to come hang out for a bit. Nice, man. Nice, dude. Have fun. So essentially creating a new sublayer layer. Essentially, yeah. That's a good way to look at it. What's up, Lewis? Good night in Brazil. How are you doing? Thanks for showing in. So yeah, so what I've done is created a new point and then I split it off. So now I have these outside brackets that I can utilize the way I want. And what we can do is we can go ahead and extrude these in a little bit. So we can either do one of two things. We can either, because they're floating out here on the surface, I can either scale them in, right? And then I can go ahead and extrude out this way, which is one way to do it. The way I'm going to do it is a little bit more backwards. I like where they are. So I'm actually going to leave them there, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude inwards. Now, what this will do is if you notice I have double turned on. If I turn off double after I've extruded it, you'll notice that you get this weird kind of double effect. And that's normal. That's just because we extruded backwards. We extruded on the inside of the mesh going out. And so if you choose to do that, which I am, then what you need to do is just flip the normals. And so we'll go ahead and we'll flip those normals. And I have a shortcut for it, but I believe if you go to geometry, oh no, maybe it's still down in display properties. Yep, display properties right next to double is flip. Just hit that button and that flips it right away. So if I turn off double, you could see it is now flipped. But now we can see that the metal bracket is kind of on the inside, and that's where I want it. And what we're going to use is make it look like the bracket is, of course, holding the box together. And what we'll do is we'll do the exact same thing on this as well, because I want this to be framed. So I'm going to go ahead and actually delete quite a few of these different edges. I'm going to turn on so that I have symmetry. I'm going to go ahead and mirror and weld that, which can be found under Geometry, Modify Topology, Mirror and Weld, which will give me a nice line down the middle. Of course, it's creased, and I don't want it creased, so I'm going to hover over that, select Crease with my Z modeler, hover over the edge, and then I'll tap to remove those creases. So it's like that. And if I at all lose anybody, please let me know. There we go. So now if I hit that, it's not creased, but that's going to give me symmetry, which is exactly what I want. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hover over an edge. Let's go back to Insert, turn off Dynamic for a second. And now with symmetry turned on, I'm going to try my best to kind of line up where that other frame is, kind of giving me a little bit of a guide. And now we're going to do the exact same thing that we did. We're also going to do this real quick, where we select like such. Yeah, that should be good. So this will give me that frame as well. And again, let's make sure we didn't select the other side, which we did not. Now, I'm going to go ahead and hold Control as I start to drag out and try to line that up as well. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then we'll tap on that. Make sure we got our mesh that we want. Let's go ahead and split hidden. And then same thing. We're going to turn on double. And we'll start to extrude on the inside a little bit. Turn off double, flip normal. And that gives me that. Now, of course, when I turn on dynamic, you can see I get some breakage happening. And we don't want that. So what we need to do now is we're going to go ahead and also group by normals. So if you go to polygroups, there is a group by normals button. We're going to go ahead and hit that, and it's going to basically anything that is at a 45-degree angle, when that plane changes, it's going to make sure to pick a different polygroup if possible. And then we're going to go ahead and crease polygroups. So we go to geometry, crease, and crease polygroups. So now when I hit it, we get this kind of nice smooth surface that we can use. Yay! Okay. And now what we're going to do is basically, from this point, I think we should be able to either create a nanomesh brush using one of the planks and make a wooden plank that we can easily manipulate, or we can go ahead and kind of just extrude, do the same thing, extrude a different piece. I think nanomesh actually might be kind of fun to try. Am I going to put some good stuff in it? I'm going to bury it, which I definitely think is going to be like the perfect thing to do. Because, you know, Breath of the Wild, that's what they do. They bury everything in that game. All right. Speaking of Zelda, because, you know, obviously a huge fan, has anybody here played the new uh, Skyward Sword version? I'm excited to actually try it. My brother's going to play it soon. And he's like, I'll check it out and see if I like it. Okay, let's get the wooden panels in here. Now, I'm going to delete that for a second because I'm actually going to want to, I'm thinking about using Nanomesh. And what Nanomesh will let me do is essentially create a brush that I can then uh, basically have the same thing on each one, and then we can extend them. Let's try that. I played a little bit with it. Always trying to better my skills. Alright, so let's grab this plank right here. And I'm going to go ahead and Control-Shift-D and drop this all the way down at the bottom. There's a long list of stuff, man. I made a lot of stuff. I'm going to go ahead and, I know I have subdivisions on this, so I'm going to go ahead and lower it down to the lowest subdivision. And I'm basically just going to go ahead and pick like one. I only need one. Now I'm going to pick the straightest one. So I'm going to pick that one right there. Doesn't have a lot of the jagged edges to it, so I think that's perfect. And we'll go ahead and delete hidden. So when you have subdivisions on a subtool that has multiple parts, if you drop it to the lowest subdivision, you can either split up that model or you can delete parts of that model. So we're just going to do the delete hidden, and that way we can keep the information on this plank the way it is. A little bit of detail, not too crazy, and then we're going to go ahead and make this what we want. So we need to also do a few things like kind of straighten it out. The last Zelda you played was Zelda 64? Ooh, it's going back a little bit. I see. The last Zelda I played was A Link to a Past, but that's I played that game like 100 times. Obviously, I played Breath of the Wild and all the other stuff, but I keep going back to that one. That one is my favorite. Okay. What we're going to do is basically kind of set this up a little bit. There we go. Trying to make it as straight as possible. And I think actually I'm going to drop the subdivision and just get the one. Dark World theme is the best theme. Nice. Oh yeah. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make this. Okay, so what we're going to do is go up to brush. Let's actually come over here and drop it so you guys can follow along. So now that I have the subtool that I want, I'm actually going to copy it. I'm going to put it over here and paste it. And I'm going to go ahead and delete this little thing. So that way it's on its own little thing. I'm going to go ahead and go to create and create insert and then say new. I want this to be a completely new insert mesh brush. So basically now if I draw it out, you can see I get all these planks popping out. Now I want to make this a Nanomesh brush. So I'm going to go under brush and go to create Nanomesh brush. And now it's going to be a Nanomesh brush. So now what I'm going to do is go back to the chest. Go ahead and delete this one. We don't need it. I have this guy. Let's go solo for a little bit. I'm going to hover over a face. It is select to nano. Let's actually select, actually they're already selected. I need to hover over the face, do all polygroups. And now we have something like that. So now that plank is on all of them. From here, we're actually going to go to Nanomesh. And from here, I can actually edit the mesh if I choose to. And so if I go to split screen, now I can see my instance where I have my Nanomesh, so I can edit this and it will update on the fly. So if I do one of these things, you'll see that it updates there. And all I really want to do is actually stretch this across, kind of scale it up a little bit. Whoop. Maybe unstretch that just a bit. So what you can see now is I'm kind of changing this a bit. Okay, we'll leave that there. If I go back to edit, unedit the mesh, now I can adjust a little bit more. And again, this is going to be, I'm not really worried about repetitive details at this point. I'm just worried about it kind of looking the way I want it to look. And now I can mess with the height if I wanted to, so we can bring this in a little bit more. I can also adjust the width a little bit. There we go. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. So now I can just make all the adjustments I need to make. I'm actually going to like it like that a little bit. Leave size alone. Perfect. And then I'm going to go 1 to mesh. So now that's going to go ahead and make that actual geometry in which I can split hidden. Turn that box back on. And now if I wanted to, I can center this, even scale that down a little bit. Something like such. So a quick, easy way to get what we are looking for. Just push that down a bit. There we go. Yeah, that's going to be good. Felipe, how you doing? Okay. We can even take these and move this up a bit. Make sure our planks are turned on. We can even scale down the interior that we have. We just want to make sure that that's essentially allowing us to do what we want. That's not interfering, but intersecting. There we go. Drop that there. Okay. There we go. And I think now I want to go ahead and actually make a few different selections here. So let's go to ZModeler. Gonna hover over. And now what we're gonna do is actually these side panels, we're gonna make those like little wood planks that like little triangles that got cut out. So I'm gonna go ahead and select this section, hover over the edge. I'm gonna pick polygroup and I'm gonna touch it. And as I'm holding, I'm gonna press Alt and it's gonna give me a different polygroup. So I have something like that. And now we're going to do it's basically the same repetitive stuff. I'm going to hover over this, go to extrude all polygroups, drag this, hold control, and make a completely different chunk that then we can go ahead and kind of repeat. I'm going to grab that, and we're going to split hidden. So now we have a different mesh that we can work with. And all I'm going to do is actually extrude it a bit. Yeah, that's good. I'm going to go ahead and increase polygroups. And I think I want to crease that edge right there. Yeah, let's crease that edge right there. Let's crease this edge and crease this edge. That's a nice little triangle piece like such. And this will be another little bit of a wood plank here. And what I actually want to do is I think instead of creasing this, I think I want to bevel it just to give it a little bit of separation. Ooh, let's go ahead and do that. So I'm actually going to turn off dynamic. I'm going to hover over edge, insert, and we're going to bring a couple edges close by like this. And then I'm going to delete that side like that. And we'll do a couple edge loops to support the fall off, like such. And let's crease this. There we go. Yeah, something like that. Let's actually get a different material. I don't think you guys can see that. Yay! Perfect. Okay, now what we're going to do, we'll texture it with wood later. What we're going to do is actually go ahead and kind of push this in there a bit. So it's like such. And then I think I want to use a ray mesh for this next part. I think I want to use a ray mesh. Let's find out. Okay. So what I'm going to do with a ray mesh is actually make a couple more copies and then kind of have them spread out this way, hopefully. It seems like a pretty simple thing to do. Let's find out. There. So we're going to flip this around till it is about, was it 270? There we go. Okay. So now we have it kind of flat like this. And I actually want, I'm going to want a couple more pieces. I think I want 4 in total. This may not be the way I want to do it. We'll find out. Offset, let's try that. Now I'm like, I don't know if this will work. It's not doing what I want it to do. Okay. And then we'll do this old school, which is totally fine. I'll just go ahead and copy and start adjusting at what I need it to be, which will be something like that. This is going to be way faster anyway. Copy, put this on this side. Ta-da, done. Sometimes you don't need to go super complicated to get the things that you need done. Sometimes this will work just fine. Perfect. And we're just going to go ahead and auto group it so that each one is different, and then we'll mirror and weld it so that the polygroups are the same on each side. And that's what we have so far. Let's go ahead and save it, because knowing me, it will crash. How's everybody else doing? I've been kind of like speeding through life right this last minute, so don't mind me, full of energy. Lots of coffee today. Okay. Got this new headset too, and it's making a slight beep sound, so hopefully it means I charged it enough. Hopefully. Alright, let's scale this down a little bit. And let's actually bring that up so they intersect. And now what we can do is we can basically, with that plank nanomesh brush that we made, we can turn around and do the exact same thing with our main box. So I can get rid of these different edges by hovering over an edge, go to Insert, and delete these. Go to Multiple, and I can say like, oh, I'm gonna want like some skinnier planks, you know? So I'll do this, and then we'll just go ahead and say that we'll do these first, like such. Haha, yeah. Hey, what's up, Luke? How you doing? Everybody, you guys don't know Luke T. You guys have to check out Luke T. He's an amazing artist. He's also here on Pixologic every Tuesday. Time do you go live on Tuesday? I usually pop in towards the end. But check out Luke. Everybody, get that guy. Jump on him. Click his name. Follow him. Really awesome artist. Share yourself with the world. No worries, man. I love your streams, dude. Hanging out with you is so much fun. Okay. 10 p.m. Pacific. Wow, 10 p.m. 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I think that, yeah, that sounds familiar. Hey, everybody. Every Tuesday, 10 a.m. my time. Do it. Do it. Do it. Lots and lots of caffeine. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I started my day with pre-workout because I decided, trying to live a healthier life. So weightlifting has been a lot of fun, and yeah. And then I had like 2 coffees after that. Okay, we're gonna delete these edges. Okay, so here's why. Check this out. We're gonna delete those edges. The reason why we want a solid poly group for each nanomesh is because if we don't, it's gonna think of these as different sections, and that's gonna give me 3 for the nanomesh instead of the 1. It'll be bouncing off the walls. Actually, surprisingly, I'm just really excited and happy today. Caffeine helps too, though. Okay, let's go back to Nanomesh for a second. Let's click the one that we got. So see if I drag this out, it's going to give me 3 different sections. So we're going to go ahead and delete those edges that we don't need by taking the Z Modeler brush, grabbing that, going back to the Nanomesh that we created, and then doing that thing like that. And let's do like that. Perfect. Actually, what's interesting is I worked like 12 days in a row. This last week has been a long week. And so I think maybe too I finally got rest. All right, let's take our nanomesh geometry. Let's kind of move that a little bit. Also height a little bit we can adjust. Size, we'll pop that size up a little bit. And drop that length down a little bit. I mean that width. That's a bit much. It's all about finding the right balance for these sliders. And again, we can always adjust, right? So let's say like I kind of like what's going on, but I want to clip that stuff. I go to Edit Mesh, and I basically come here and clip some of these edges. Like I don't want this one, and I don't want this edge here. So I take these and I kind of clip them. Go ahead and delete Hidden. When I click off of Edit Mesh, now that's all there. Let's go back to Edit, and let's actually close holes so we get a little bit of solid geometry. Okay, pardon me. So now, there, we'll do something like that. And then again, we'll go ahead and do one to mesh. Actually, let's back it up a little bit because I do want to make an adjustment. Kind of scale that up just a little bit. There we go. Push that in. Yeah. Let's see. No, no, let's just keep it there. Now it's just about making adjustments, however you see fit. Let's back it up a little bit. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and make that one a mesh. I could basically turn around, grab this guy. Yeah, let's do that. Let's close holes. All right. Kamara! What's happening? Hello. All right, let's grab this here. Let's straighten that out for a second. There we go. Now what we could do is actually we could just take this the way we want it. So let's take this right here. Let's go ahead and split hidden. And I'm actually going to go just Control Shift D, duplicate. I'm actually going to rotate this around. Go ahead and hit close holes. Turn on symmetry. And now I'll just go ahead and adjust this so it looks like that. So we get something like such. I was literally about to ask. I haven't seen Iron Skulls in a while. Yeah, man. How you doing? How you doing, Susan Mech? And Kamara. There we go. Yep. I'm a super busy dude, so took a break from streaming for a little bit on my own personal channel so I could focus in on work. Because work has been pretty crazy. In a good way, but just pretty crazy. Now what I'm going to do is actually modify some of this stuff. Now I'm going to be making just some simple customization where I'm just taking the different planks, grabbing them, and then we'll just be flipping them around however we see fit. Just pretty much just all you ever really need to do. Something like that. 180. Come over here a little bit. Stretch this one up. So you can make this however you want. Essentially, you could just break up that different look. You can also texture it. You could do this with plain planks. The plainest of planks. Go ahead and take that for a second. Just make a small adjustment on this side. There we go. Now let's just go ahead and, yeah, I'm just going to hit render for a second. Okay. Now we're going to be burying this chest, so I'm not going to be worrying about too much detail, but we will be adding a little bit of texture here, then we'll add some rivets, and we'll call it a day, and then we'll basically bury it, which is what we need to do. And then for the rivets is going to be fun. So what we're going to do is actually come here. I'm going to control tap. Ooh, you know what? Let's back that up for a second. We are uneven. No. Which is, you know what? That's totally fine. That is fine. So we'll make uneven ones just like that. Which will be perfect. Okay. And what I'm going to do is we'll make another Nanomesh, which would be perfect. And just give us what we need. So I'm going to take this guy here. And now we're going to be going into some simple IMM brushes that is just stock. And there's a bunch of stuff. So we have like machine parts. I think industrial pieces will be good. Oh yeah, that's my Vegeta head. Okay. Let's see if I can find a model kit maybe. Yeah, we'll take this one. And you know what we'll do? We'll actually turn this into a Q cube. You'll see why in a second. And we'll go ahead and we'll drag this out like such. Grab this, send it home, and delete hidden. And this will be our brush, like such. What is up, TL101 Art? How you doing? I'm doing pretty good, man. We're making a Nanomesh brush right now. Because we're making a chest. I'm actually going to go ahead and smooth this. So we're going to edit this mesh the way it is. So let's go Z Modeler brush. I'm going to delete these creases here. Oh. Hover over an edge, crease, and complete loop. We're going to uncrease that. Insert, and we're going to kind of make this bevel a little bit. Select this section here and kind of poof that up a bit. Just poof it. Same with this guy right there. Kind of blow that up just a little bit. It's okay, it's not perfect either. It's not supposed to be. Gotta love Nanomesh. Oh yeah, absolutely. You're good? That's awesome. I'm glad. Let's grab here. Let's go remove the crease. The beauty part about ZBrush, guys, is you can make a brush. You can make anything a brush. This is just super useful. Okay. So now that we have the shape that we want, we're going to go ahead and hit B for brush, go to create insert, and then we'll make a new brush. And then we'll hit B as well, and then down here, create Nanomesh brush. So there's multiple ways you could do it. You can either do it by going to brush, and then going to create insert, then create Nanomesh, or you can open up the brush palette, and those options are also down here, which is, again, that's super useful. And then two, let's say you wanted to keep this, and right now my Nanomesh brush looks like a Z Modeler brush, right? If I wanted to keep this so I know that it's always a button, you know, what you could do is just like kind of shape the button the way it is. You can go up to brush and hit selection, and that will change it looking like the thing that it is. So now if I wanted to save this out, I could click here or go to brush and say save as, and then we can call this nano button. Of course, don't do it in all caps. Nanomesh button, right? And then you could just save that, and that way you have it forever. So completely up to you on that, but I find that to be super useful. You can get so many custom brushes just by creating stuff. Hey, what is happening? Jozaldo? Jozaldo. Hopefully I said that right. Welcome in. We're making a crate right now that we're going to be burying soon. And now what we're going to do is come back over here, hover over our face, make sure it's selected to Nanomesh because you can make it whatever you want. Go to Nanomesh, and then also all polygroup. And now we'll just whoop, kind of pop that bad boy out like that. And those might be a little bit too big, so we'll make them a little bit smaller. Something like that. Yay! Doesn't have to be too perfect, you know, just what we want. And you can either leave that alone the way it is, or you can accept it by going to Nanomesh and going 1 to mesh, which is of course how you will accept it to make it actual geometry. Until then, it is not actual geometry, so you could turn off Nanomesh at any point, and you could see that it is not there until you hit 1 to mesh. Because we're 3D printing it, we obviously are going to want to 1 to mesh it, and we'll do the exact same thing here. Let's click these edges here. You know what, actually, let's do one thing real quick too. I want another edge loop here. So I'm actually going to mask this off because I just want to cut evenly across the board. And I'm going to go ahead and go with slice curve. So here's a really cool trick. If you want a special edge loop, notice I have 4 parts of my geometry. If I wanted to do a slice curve, I could just do this. And that could work, but then I'd have to change the polygroups again. So instead of changing the polygroups, what I can do is mask the whole area, hold Shift and Control to slice curve, angle it where I want it to be, and then let it go. Oops. So like this. And now it didn't change my polygroups, but it did add an edge loop, which is perfect. I love the Saiyan's head at the right corner. Yeah, he makes sure that I'm doing my job. And now we'll go ahead and we'll select these guys. Yeah, so this is actually this Vegeta head, little backstory. When I was learning articulation, um, I was actually going to make an articulated Vegeta, and I have it pretty much mostly done. I just don't have the means to test it properly. And if you guys would like to see that model before I leave, let me know. I do have it. I could showcase it. We'll do it towards the end. Ooh, look at that. That was pretty cool. There we go. There we go. I don't know if I actually want all 4 there. Now I'm second guessing myself. Let's just do the top and the bottom and get it roughly close to what it is that we want, which would be like that. Yeah, I think that's good. And we'll do the exact same thing here. We could just touch that. It'll be the same size. Perfect. 1 to mesh on that and 1 to mesh on that. And we are almost done with our chest. And of course, we're going to bury them, so I'm not too worried about detail here. It's just if I decide to do something with it later and I want to have a base to work off of, this is a perfect thing to do. Hello, sir, and hey, friends. I'm a beginner 3D. Well, welcome in, NAKY. Hello, hello. Hey, what's going on, Talden? How are you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Now, this is a poorly constructed chest. Oh, see, right there's a little bit. Oop, perfect. Now that's all the same size. Doing well, and you? I'm doing well. Doing well. Just chilling on a Sunday, hanging out with you guys, making some art. You'll see where this is going in a second. But welcome in. Now let's go ahead and quickly make some subdivisions so we can add a little bit of detail and then we can end up burying our chest. So what we're going to do is actually quickly add some geometry here that will give us what we're looking for. Let's go like that. And then let's also do the same thing here. Perfect. And let's just go ahead and do auto groups and mirror and weld so they're the same. Now when I start subdividing, I'll actually get some decent topology, and we'll just get some pretty decent wood texture on here that will serve us for what we're trying to do without making it overly complicated. And so what we'll do is we'll actually make an alpha brush right now within ZBrush's own texture brush setup to get something pretty quickly that we can use that will serve its purpose. So let's save that real fast. And then let's get into it. Okay. So if we open up the spotlight area, right? That's what it's called? Yeah. And we go to texture, there's wood textures in here that we can manipulate. So we're going to go ahead and come all the way over. It's back at the end, but there's some wood texture right here. If we double click this, we'll now get a texture over here in our texture image palette. And now we can go ahead, click this image, and say make alpha. And now we have an alpha that we can utilize that has this wood texture, and we can get rid of that texture. And now we are good to just start texturing our model. I love this page, teaching sculpting 3D. Thank you for teaching. Absolutely. Thank you for being here. I love teaching as much as I can. Oops. Oop, I made a mistake. I'm still on my Z modeler brush. Give it a second. This is why we saved, because I could have just crashed it. Uh-oh. Got that blue ring happening. That means I told ZBrush to do something very, very bad. Okay, yay, canceled that. Maybe. Action canceled. Trying to just control Z for a second. Come on. And also too, guys, don't be afraid to ask any questions. If I know the answer, I will do my best to answer it. And if I struggle with the answer, or I don't know, I will tell you, and I will try to find at least a resource to point you into. So never be afraid to ask a question. How do you add subdivisions on that subdivided ZBrush tool? Ooh, I like that question. Very good. Okay, hold on one second. Essentially, I'll show you, but in order to add subdivisions, all you have to do is go under geometry and add your subdivisions. You can add subdivisions to everything, which gets a little dangerous because you can actually add subdivisions to Nanomesh, but to add subdivisions, all you need to do is ZBrush your tool. Once your ZBrush tool is ready, just hit Control D or go under Geometry and Divide, and that will start to add the subdivisions that you're looking for. From there, it's a matter of how much do you want to subdivide, and you want to remember that when you choose to subdivide, it's going to multiply by 4 each time. So if you literally just have 100 100 active points, and then when you subdivide, that's going to go to 400. Then when you subdivide, it's going to go to 1600. When you subdivide it, it's going to go on and on. So you want to be careful when you do subdivide because you can get very high topology or very dense models very quickly by subdividing a lot. So just be careful when you do. I think I broke ZBrush. To be honest, it's freaking out. It's okay, we saved. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel it. And I'm going to load it back up again. That's my fault because I accidentally added the texture to the crease brush that I had. That then turned around and from there freaked out. So we're going to go ahead and load and we're going to redo that. That's my fault. Bloop. That's why you save all the time. So hopefully that answered your question. Yay, there we go. So the example here is, like, let's go ahead and take a sphere real quick, and let's just make Polymesh 3D. So let's say this model is Dynameshed, so we're just going to Dynamesh it. You come here to Geometry, notice that there are no subdivisions. If you take a look, Higher Res is available button, but it's not really going to do what you want it to do. And then Reconstruct Subdivision is an active button, a highly underused button I might add, but we'll get to that when we can. And then subdivisions are grayed out because it's Dynamesh. But if I hit Control D, notice you have subdivisions, even though this is Dynameshed, I have subdivisions now on my Dynamesh model. So if I were to even come here to Dynamesh, notice, is turned on, but this is going to bog your system down very heavily because Dynamesh should never be subdivided. So it's easy to get subdivisions on any subtool. It doesn't have to be Z-remeshed, but it should be. So again, hopefully that answers that question. But what you would do is, let's say you like this, you think this is a very, I think this is a very pretty model. Just a tug and a pull in here, and we get something like that. And now I want to Z-remesh this to be a thing. So then just go down to Z-remesher, go ahead and Z-remesh it, however you feel need to. And then after that, just Control D or hit divide, and that will start subdividing. So now this is Z-remesh. Now if I just come here and start dividing, I now have subdivisions. And what's cool about subdivisions and why most people preach it is because you get a high-res model that you can do details on. And then if you ever need to step down to clean something up, Shift D steps down, and then I can even take my move brush, kind of move that out a little bit, then hit D a few more times, and I keep that detail at the higher levels, but I'm able to manipulate the underlining mesh. So think of the lowest subdivision level as your foundation for your model that then you're just going to start building the house on. May I ask, how much time do you take to make a character from beginning to success? That's a great question. And the answer is, unfortunately, however long it takes. But for me personally, if I wanted to take a model very much like my Vegeta model here, I worked on this Vegeta model for about 3 weeks nonstop, 8 hours a day, and then it took an additional week to prep for 3D printing. So it just depends. You get faster over time, so don't dwell too much on how much time does it take me to get something done. It takes as long as it takes, but in the work environment, I can tell you that for me, I'm a character artist for the toy company. I work for Funko, and they need it in a couple days for what we do, which isn't too crazy. But again, that's more at a production level. Every studio is different. I've freelanced with other companies before I got a studio job, and they would give me turnarounds between 4 to 6 weeks for any given character from complete zero to full. So I say go ahead, take your time, especially when you're learning. Speed will come the more you practice. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Just you focus on the character development and doing your best work, and then that will showcase in speed over time. Hey friend, greeting from Argentina. Welcome in, welcome in. Okay. So this current project that we're on right now, to give you a really good example, I've been working with you guys for about, I want to say going on 4 weeks now, because I like to do big projects here. I like to show the whole process, even though sometimes it could get like a little boring. And this is a pretty simple character, but I spent like a week on making one really good Bokoblin base mesh that then I broke up and used a few different times to get the different versions, the blackout, getting the texture right. So yeah, it definitely takes time. All right, dude, gonna head off. Nice seeing you work. Absolutely, dude. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. As always, everybody, make sure to check out Luke T. Again, he does Pixel streaming as well, and he goes every Tuesday. So make sure to hit a follow on him. Awesome, dude. Have a good night, buddy. Okay. Now we were gonna texture this, so let's grab a brush that's gonna help us not crash. So we're gonna grab the standard brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to texture. And again, we got to come back up here to spotlight, texture, and then we got to quickly come over here to wood and texture. Double click that guy. And then we're going to come down here to the texture and we're going to say make alpha. and now we have our alpha, which is where we left off. Now we have a brush that we can go ahead and apply our texture to. So what we're going to do is switch the stroke to drag rec, which is going to be very useful. And now as I drag out, you can see I'm getting some sort of texture, but of course it's not that great. So we need to subdivide a little bit more to get something a little bit more useful. There we go, that's better. But now it's a little too much texture. So we're going to drop the intensity, and we're going to actually open up our brush palette. So let's dock it over here. And then we're going to go to alpha as well. We're going to go to modify under alpha, and we're going to hit surface. And what that's just going to do is give us a better control of how the alpha is applied on the surface of our mesh. And then we can go ahead and increase the intensity a little bit if we wanted to. Something like that should be pretty good. Streak length, maybe add a little bit. No, that's not really doing what I want, which is fine. Now what we can do is go to orientation, and this will give us a little bit more control of what we want. Kind of just rotate a little bit, making it a little bit different. Spin rate. So you can see the spin rate kind of adjusts, and actually it gives me a pretty decent result. Allows me to kind of change its direction and a little bit, and I think that's pretty cool. Now we don't need that, that's a little ridiculous, just a teeny bit, but that's okay. Go up a little bit on subdivision. Let's go back to 0. And we're just adding a little bit of noise here. But just a little bit of texture. So from afar, that's going to give us something a little bit different, which is cool. Up this up a little bit. So this chest has been beaten a little bit too much. Now, I never just put an alpha on something and then let it and say that that's done, but I do everything in steps where I'll say, okay, here's some texture, and that's looking pretty good. So now what I'll do is I'll actually go back and we'll actually smooth it down a little bit because it's just a bit much. So we're going to hold shift, click up here, and go to smooth peaks. Turn down the RGB by holding the space bar, holding shift, turning off RGB, dropping the intensity down, which all this stuff can be found up here in the draw section. Now I'm just going to go ahead and kind of lightly smooth some of these areas out, just relaxing a little bit. There we go. And I'm just kind of randomly touching certain areas. I'm not really looking for specifics. I try not to hone in too much on the details unless they absolutely have to be, which in this case they don't need to be. Add a little bit of denting on one side. Yeah, like that. There we go. Cool. So now we can go ahead and close that alpha down. We can hide this left tab. Now what we can do is actually just start We can start combining some of this stuff. I'm going to go ahead and increase that, so if I were to go ahead and dynamic subdivide, it doesn't actually deform in any way, shape, or form. Go ahead and apply that thickness. We'll apply that one. Those are subdivided. These are subdivided by 3 levels. Now this bottom side, this is where the mesh kind of started. And what we're going to do is actually just shrink that down a little bit and use that to make sure that the rest is filled up on the inside so that it's not, so that when we merge it together, it will be watertight. And what we could do is actually maybe expand that up just a little bit like such. Let's go ahead and auto groups, click this guy, delete hidden because there's like little particles we don't need. There we go. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and merge everything together. So auto groups, increase by normals. Let's subdivide the cube up a little bit. There we go. Beautiful. And now we can merge things together. We'll say yep, and we're just going to merge everything down. So now we have our chest. And let's go ahead and save that. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to bother with adding the lock or anything this time because it's where the chest is going to go. So if we turn on everything else, and we have this chest right now, we're actually going to be placing this somewhere down here at the base. So he's walking this way. So maybe what we'll do is we'll take our chest, kind of bury it right there. And when we're ready, we can end up painting it. If you guys have ever played Breath of the Wild, then you know just random chests stick out of the ground sometimes. There you go. It's all about getting that base. That base. Okay. Let's see. Do you bake that on other 3D programs like Substance, or would you just render in ZBrush, then edit in Photoshop? It depends on the workflow of what you're going for. For me specifically, because everything is getting 3D printed, I don't really need to texture much of anything because this is how the model will print. When I paint or texture, it's usually to get a feel of the character, and if I do want to do a final render, if I want to, a lot of times I'll just take it to Keyshot, or you could take it straight into Marmoset. You don't really need, or in any other programs like Blender and stuff, you could take it in there and just render out. You can render in ZBrush, absolutely. For professional use, for like your portfolio, I don't recommend it. Because ZBrush, that's not where it's the strongest, but you can get a really nice clean render to share within ZBrush if you wanted to. So hopefully that answers your question. But for me, for this, I would probably do the Pixologic ZBrush bridge to Keyshot, and then kind of show from there to a final render, because I can make it look like a figure or a toy really easily in Keyshot, and I don't have to worry about painting it because the poly paint does transfer over. So, in fact, when we're working with just this in particular, you can even do some other stuff here, like let's do auto groups, for example. And we're going to just go ahead and select the metal particles, like such, all the rivets. And I could have done this, of course, before I merged everything together, especially since there's a lot of little pieces that I haven't merged in the final yet. Loop loop. How to reduce your poly count and perform retopology with ZBrush? That's a great question. 1 second, as I like that question a lot. Okay, so now I have this right here. I'm going to go ahead and actually just fill that object with that wood color that I have on there from what I had selected previously. I'm going to switch this over, and now I'll pick like I could pick like just a basic metal color. So let's go matte cap metal. Or I could pick like this metal here so that the lights interact with it, which is probably what I'll do. Come on over to color, which is up here. And of course, we'll select M for material and do fill object. And now that that is selected, we can come back to startup material. And now this will have a metal texture to it already assigned, so it looks a little bit better. Now for reducing poly counts to and performing retopology with ZBrush, if you're going for something that's animation ready, you can retopo in ZBrush, but it's a little bit more difficult. So there are other programs that do a really good job with that are industry standard, but you can do some pretty good results with just ZRemesher if you're trying to get something that's sculptable, maybe not animation ready. Very good. Would like to be good sculpting. You absolutely will. I guarantee it. Just keep practicing, keep pushing yourself, and ask questions, learn, and you'll absolutely get there one day. Okay, so let's bring up a character real quick. Let's bring up my standard Bokoblin, the one that I sculpted for this guy. Okay, let's turn everything off that we don't need. And we don't need this bow for example. Okay. So I showed this off in a previous version when I was sculpting him. But let's go ahead and let's say that he doesn't have subdivisions. And even further, he's dynameshed at like 1,000. Okay? And we want to retopologize him very effectively, but very quickly with inside of ZBrush. This won't be animation ready, but this can get you pretty close. And this is probably my favorite method of all time, and that is just using polygroups to give you something that you're looking for and tell ZBrush what to do. The trick with ZRemesher is basically it can do anything you want, and if you leave it up to its own device, it won't always give you the best result. So I find if you guide it a little bit by giving it some boundaries, then ZRemesher can work amazing and get you great results. So the very first thing is let's mark a point in history that we want to come back to for this color, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and up here at the timeline, we have a history bar. This history bar tells ZBrush this is the foundation and the basis for everything within this subtool. By holding Control and tapping up here, we are now telling ZBrush this beginning part is not the foundation. This last part with this checkbox is the foundation. And that's where we're going to start, okay? So what we're going to do is we have this character right here, and we're going to use polygroup it to get to that level. We're going to use polygroup to get to the level so we can break up the model in different polygroups. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to take white and black, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to fill this whole thing with white, okay? And now we're going to switch colors to the black, and then we're going to use a paintbrush. Now, if your model is completely symmetrical, including facial expressions, this will be a lot easier. If it is not, then then you might have a little bit of a harder time. You just have to give it a little bit more asymmetrical love. But for right now, we'll just go ahead and demonstrate symmetrically for funsies. And I do want to make a certain setting adjustment, and that is under brush. What I would like to do is if I go under modifiers, no, sorry, if I go under pen curve, right now, all brushes, especially if we're using a tablet, has that pen pressure. If I go under brush and I take this, I believe it's the pen. Nope, it's not on it. Come on. Edit curve, I think. There we go. Let's fill this up. Yeah, that's a little bit better. Yeah, that's a little bit better. So we can actually edit the brush. We can also have lazy mouse turned on, which is pretty nice. But we can go ahead and edit the curve of how that brush works. I think curve by pen, I think that's right. There we go. That's a little bit better. It gives us a little bit more of a consistent result without too much pen pressure. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to group like-minded things together. So this ear, for example, even with lazy mouse, I'm going to go ahead and kind of paint around his ear. And make sure that the paint is as opaque as you can make it. So nice and dark, which is why we adjusted the pen pressure a little bit. And what we're going to do is come over here. Now, if you understand or know any retopology guidelines, you can paint those lines according to that and get something pretty close to what you would need to do for manual retopology. But again, this won't give you super clean topology for animation, so I don't recommend doing it this way, but for sculpting, I do recommend doing it this way. We're going to come over here, and what we're doing is just making sections that then with polyloop it will be able to get something that's a whole lot more controllable. And again, you can go as nuts as you want with this. Here we go. Even here, like there's a horn, right? So I'm actually going to create a couple sections up here that will be a little bit easier. We can even say that this right here, we're going to want this to come up, and we do want this to go around. So again, you can paint these lines and you can make it as, you can go nuts. That's my point. Let's actually go around the arm a little bit. Okay. And for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of split this hand like such. Okay. So this will give you an idea of how polyloop it will work. So make sure your lines are nice and clean. And then from here, what we do is we come up to stroke. Oh my God, sorry, not stroke. We're going to go to Z plugin, and then there is polygroup it, and then we have this polygroup from paint option, and we're going to go ahead and click here. And what this will do is actually take our paint job and break up the model how we see fit. So this was before, and now this is after. So you can see now the model got broken up into different sections with different poly paint. Now, if some things are close together in color, like these two are two different shades of purple, you could select this, Control W, bring it back to give it just a little bit something different. And that right there will help you out, okay? Now that we have this, what we're going to do, maybe you should send Mail Nintendo some pictures showing them how to make characters for the next Zelda game. I agree. Yeah. I'll be like, here, check this out. So now that we got this going on, okay, we need to clean up these lines a little bit. And so we can do this one of two ways. Simple enough is that we can actually go to deformation. And then right at the top here, we have polish by groups. And if we zoom all the way in, you see these groups are really jagged. Go ahead and swipe that over a few times. And you can see that that cleans it up fairly well. The other thing you can do is you can go up to our brush. So hit the comma key, come up here to the spotlight, go to the brush, and then go to smooth. And then there is a smooth groups. Hold shift, double click that. And then what you could do is you could come in here and smooth every single one of these down. Now don't worry too much that it's also smoothing the topology a bit and some of the paint. We got what we needed out of polygroup it. So you could take your time and use this to get really nice lines. You can see here, just really quickly, I'm making some pretty good adjustments. And again, this is just to kind of give us the idea that these lines are nice and smooth and that they'll cooperate the way we want in ZRemesher. Now that we have relatively smoother lines, what we're going to do is I highly recommend going to Geometry, Crease, and crease all polygroups. That is going to ensure that the polygroups are sealed off. Think of a crease like kind of a border, and that nothing's going to get past that crease. And we're going to use that to our advantage. We're now going to go ahead, go to ZRemesher. We're going to do keep groups, keep creases, and then we'll start out with a relatively decent topology. Think of an animated character, could be anywhere between 20,000 to 100,000 for AAA titles. That might be pushing it, but you know, say 20,000. So start with 20, and then let's go ahead and ZRemesh, and we're going to make sure that unless your character is completely symmetrical, we're going to make sure that symmetry is turned off by hitting X. For me, it's not symmetrical, so it's off, and then we'll hit ZRemesher. And now we're going to, ZRemesh will do what we want it to do, which is stay within its own polygroups and create edge loops that are going to help support the model, not do its own thing. And this might take a second because it's a tall order. And again, you can get as crazy as you want. You can break up the fingies, make them different polygroups, toesies, different polygroups. Like you can get pretty nuts. Okay, now this is a full character, and let's switch to paint. And this kind of broke a little bit, so no worries. We're just gonna go Control Z. We're actually gonna increase that to maybe 30,000. We'll do the same thing. If ZRemesher breaks, it's too little. This is a full character, so 5,000, 6,000, that's too low, so we need to go higher. And each time that number will be different. I recommend ZRemeshing intuitively, meaning try a number. If it ZRemeshes and it looks broken, that's too little. If it looks too detailed, it might be too much. And there you go. So 30,000, which actually appears as 27,081 polygroups, or active points, or vertices, base, whatever you want to call it. That's not too bad. So now we have a model that's low topology. And now what I can do is subdivide a couple times. And then, do you guys remember all the way back here in time, we bookmarked a point in history? So now we need to go back to the future or the past. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hit Control D. I'm going to subdivide a couple times, not too much, like 2-3 times max. So you don't want to go too crazy. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to Subtool, Project, and there's a button here called Project History. So this will basically pull an endgame on you. Go ahead and click that. It's going to ask, do you want to project polypaint? Say, yeah, duh, come on, always do that. Thank you so much, yeah. And now give it a second, and it'll project all that detail back. Now, I will warn you guys, projecting with multiple separated geometry within the same subtool doesn't project history as effectively as a single subtool would on itself. So just fair warning on that. Now, here you go. Here is our Z-remeshed model that is low topology, has some pretty clean edge loops that we can work on. That's going to support our sculpting in high res. And it'll even allow us to kind of pose a lot easier. So if we were to if we wanted to pose this guy, now we can either lasso a section, maybe pick a polygroup, mask that off, and there you go. Now you could start, you can pose with ease. There you go. Hello. Make him wave. Life is good. And again, we have higher subdivisions. And let's actually get a color so you can see a little bit better. I know it's a bit dark, but there you go. So that's how I would recommend you do it. Polygroup is an amazing tool. It's probably my most recommended on getting clean topology. Again, Z-Remesher is kind of so powerful that it needs to be told what to do to get the best results. And I find that this works the best for me. So there you go. And then, of course, too, what you could do is uncrease everything so you don't actually have those creases unless you need those creases. Sometimes project plays funny on more complex sculpts. Even sometimes it's better to subdivide once and then project, repeat till happy. Absolutely, nothing wrong with that method as well, Ash. The thing that I recognize a lot is if we were to do that process with another, like let's say here, let's go ahead and let's go up here to, I'll show you guys a really quick little cool trick on an accident or you want to do something. Never freeze subdivisions, that's terrible. But let's say I want to put like cloth on his arm real quick. What I'm going to do is delete lower. I'm going to go ahead and pull a cylinder, grab a cylinder, kind of shrink this down a little bit. And let's say I fit this to his arm and I'm really happy with said results, right? Scale that down, put that up a little bit. Okay. So if I wanted to project detail back onto this, but this right here, this guy right here, oh my gosh, click there we go. Okay. Like I want to project detail back onto this. Let's say, you know, I like this the way it is. This is a quick demonstration. And then let's say like, this is probably just like terrible example, but if I had like, if I picked this point in time and then I did a bunch of other stuff, let's say I did this just stuff and I wanted to project back. Sometimes when doing project history, it might break when it recognizes that the subdivision between separated mesh, it's not always going to read it right, and sometimes it can break it. So be careful of that. I don't really have a good example, but kind of clipped. But you know what I mean? So just be careful when you have stuff that is separated. So yeah. Sounds good. I'm actually getting ready to actually drop this UI soon. I'm just prepping to make sure that I have all the right files because I do have some brushes that I use on a constant that I could recommend that you download, and then I also have like I have SK brushes. So I want to make sure that I can get all the resources and point people to the right stuff, or just take those brushes off in total. So once I'm done kind of fiddling with this, I will be releasing it for sure. Especially since I know it makes it easier to follow along. Let's grab that guy. So just a little thought. Now, here's something that's really cool. I'm going to delete hidden for a second. Let's say this was subdivision, and I deleted it by accident, and now I'm stuck on high. Reconstruct subdivision. If there were subdivisions previous, if you click reconstruct subdivisions, it will rebuild the subdivisions you lost. So if you accidentally delete your subdivisions, and then you like turned off ZBrush and came back, it still knows it had subdivisions there. So a lot of times what I've done is brought in a model that I knew had subdivisions but I lost it, hit reconstruct, and if it had it before, it will rebuild it. And then you can get that subdivision base back, which is pretty cool. So just a little thought. Anyway, all right. So hopefully that answered a few questions. Let's come back here. And this is where we're at right now. And I do want to paint this chest a little bit. So what I'm going to do is come up to plugin. I'm going to go into ambient occlusion, and I'm actually going to compute, and we're going to get some AO. And I like to use this a lot for painting. Of course, it might be a bit heavy on the stream. Oh no, it's not too bad. Okay, great. Now what AO does is it generates a really cool mask. So now what we can do is actually grab some base colors, grab some browns, and actually make some shadows really quickly by inverting that mask by tapping and holding control on the side. Going up to color, RGB. Make sure we have RGB selected. So we do need to go to draw, RGB, color, and then we can go to fill object, invert that so that we get a little bit of that kind of dirty look to the chest. We can actually do that a couple times. I have shortcuts right here to do the majority of that. Let's go back. Let's fill that a little bit more. There we go. So that right there just kind of makes it look a lot better. Select the ground. Oop. Select the ground. We can do the same thing. We can come here. Now what we could do, if we wanted to do AI on or AO on everything, this could be a bit heavy, so I'm not going to do it during the stream. But what I could end up doing is coming up, and right under compute is occlusion volume. And what that will do is, if I turn that on, it will actually, let's try it. I like show and tell. The stream might dip just a little bit. But if we hit this button, what it's going to do is take everything in the scene and add AO where it thinks it will, and it's going to basically essentially communicate with all the subtools and their placements to give us correct shadow. So fingers crossed, but let's give it a shot. Pen down. Okay. I got a nice little mic mute up here now. Well, you guys don't have to hear me clear my throat. Okay. Now that button's on. That was just the compute part. Now we compute it. Come on, ZBrush, you can do it. Okay. All right. That should have done it. So now we get some different shadows and interactions. And now we can darken up a little bit, fill that in. There we go. Let's actually grab this color that's here. The darker. There we go. Now we can start utilizing that. Let's go a little bit darker. You can even soften that mask a little bit. We have subdivisions, drop subdivisions, do a light soften if you would like. Having a hard time seeing on this one. Oh, that's because, there we go. Might be the same color as before. Okay. Let's hit a paintbrush. That might be helpful. There we go. Yeah, just ever so subtle. There we go. Something like that. So we can go pretty dark with that if we wanted to. I think that pretty much should have done it everywhere else. And if it didn't, let's make sure that it did. Yeah, it did. But there's just not a whole lot of noise here. So there's like not a whole lot of spot where ambient occlusion made sense, which is totally fine. Okay. So you could tap on each one and invert that. You can invert that ambient occlusion mask, and that will do it. But sometimes it doesn't work. So like what I'll do is I'll do a mask cavity at like a little bit, which can be found under masking. So if you go to masking, and then you go ahead and mask cavity, and then pick an intensity with like a little bit of a blur, you get something like this. Kind of soften that up a bit. Pick a darker color, Control H to hide it, and then you can fill in if you wanted to. Something like that. So you can start filling in the cracks and the crevices. It's a little bit high in the paint, so I'm going to do something a little bit more subtle. Something like that. Go a little bit darker. Control H, bring it back. Maybe soften that a little bit. Yeah, it's too much. Let's actually go a little bit darker. Flip that. Something like that if we wanted to. I'm actually not liking that, so we'll go a little bit, something a little bit different when the time comes. Let's actually solo that out. We'll have to recompute this one in particular. This one I had a mask on before. So yeah, that's a fun one. Definitely highly recommended. And then what we're going to try right now, before we get into painting, I want to try to make the illusion of grass for 3D printing. I have an idea of how I want to approach it, but I don't know if it's actually going to work too much. We'll have to see. But what we're going to do is come here, let's fill object. There we go. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, end up doing that a lot. Okay, let's try some blades of grass, and then we'll end up painting the rest later. Although I really want to get the good chunk of this. Let's see here. It looks like computing each individual one might be a better option at this point too. Looks like I'm getting better results that way. So just something to kind of keep mindful. Yeah. Yeah, it looks like I'm getting better results that way. So that's where you could probably group things together a bit more and then go from there. Yeah, that looks so much better. Okay, cool. So add script plugin. See the ZBrush. Okay. And you can always adjust those settings. I like to stick with the basic setting because it seems to work the way I want it to. So maybe I'll create a shortcut for that there as well. But hopefully this process makes sense. It's just a nice way to get some pretty decent shadows in really quickly. That looks good, so you're not wasting a lot of time just trying to paint all over the place. I'm just creating a mask with ambient occlusion and then filling and then clearing that mask. And it's just a really simple way. Make things look really, really cool pretty quickly. I'm keeping the shadows relatively the same. It just adds so much depth and flavor to it, you know? But again, take your time, especially when you're trying to get certain results. No, not that one. Let's create the ropes. Let's clear that mask out. There we go. Invert, fill that. Yeah. Just looks so much better. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to make some grass blades that hopefully do what we want it to do. That's going to be pretty much, that'll be pretty much it for this piece eventually. It'll be then getting it prepped for 3D printing, and there's a lot to that. Got a little skeleton down here, by the way, guys. Just there we go. Got a little skeleton that's down here. Thought that was kind of a little neat addition. Bury that hand though. Okay. Let's get some grass blades in here, and then it will be final texturing, and then we are good to go for this piece. And then I'm thinking what we'll do, we have time at the end of the stream. I'll start going over basic cutting on like a Bokoblin bust, but cutting this up is going to be pretty much a stream on its own. So we'll wait until next week to really do that. There we go. Now we have a little bit of AO in there, and I think that's looking pretty nice. We got about a little over an hour right now, which will be super fun. Okay. Let's go ahead and save this because we've done a lot of work to it. There we go. Still making that. Still making what? This piece? Oh yeah. Okay. When it comes to my personal work, I definitely take a lot longer than my professional work. But I want it to be the best I can do, and that's always something I strive for and encourage others to as well. There we go. All right, let's do grass blades. So here's what I'm thinking. What we're gonna do is open this up. And remember that free subdivision trick I was telling you guys about? I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. And then what I'm gonna do is actually go ahead and I'm gonna pop over to the cylinder real fast, make polymesh 3D, change this like such. And now we're gonna go ahead and make a simple blade of grass that we can use. And here's my thought with the blade of grass. I want it to be clumpy in a way that still looks like individuals. This may not work, but let's give it a shot. I'm going to go initialize, and we're going to go QQ. And what we're going to do is just mask off this area. And we're going to make it a tall piece of grass. Okay. I'm going to kind of make that a little bit skinny. And let's grab the Z modeler. And let's make some edge loops. Say right about there. Just perfect. I'm going to grab this. Let's bring this up and maybe taper this down a little bit. Something like that. Grab this. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and mirror and weld it, which will give us a really nice edge down the middle. And then we're going to select just this middle one right here. Kind of bring that in like that. Okay. Now we're going to turn on symmetry, and we're going to go ahead and bevel this a little bit. Actually, not like that. Let's actually insert an edge loop right there, an edge loop right there. We're going to actually delete this line by holding Alt and tapping on said line. That'll give me a little bit natural little fall off, which will be perfect. And I'm going to add a couple supporting loops down there. Perfect. Now let's select this section. Now we're just going to kind of bend that so that it's slightly up, slightly not. Let's add a couple edge loops here to support that side. There we go. Something like that. Perfect. Okay. Now what we're going to do is I'm actually going to point that up like this, and I'm going to create insert mesh new, and this will be an insert mesh. And my thought is yeah, that should work. Now we're going to come here to the base. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and just place one bit of grass that I want. I'm actually going to drop the depth. So what I'm going to do is go to brush. Now we're going to make adjustments to this brush. And what we're going to do is go to depth, and we're actually going to drop that a little bit. So when I bring this out, you can see it actually sticks into the surface a little bit. You see there's a lot more to that, but it's actually embedded into the surface, which is what we want. From here, we'll go ahead and we'll split unmasked points. And now we have just the ground again. And what I'm going to do with the ground is we're going to go back to geometry, reconstruct subdivisions so that we have a basic model that's super low. Perfect. There it is. So we can drop that subdivision. And now we have our blade of grass that we can focus on. Now the idea behind this, and I'll have to see if I can get it to print, but if you guys had seen my Master Sword piece, I pretty much got the Silent Princess to print very small, kind of, the stem of it was very skinny. And so I think based on the size of this, if I make it at least, maybe a millimeter or two, it could print in resin. So that's going to be the goal. So we're going to make little bushels of grass. So let's turn everything off except for the grass and that dirt. Let's hit subdivide. Ideally, maybe, just maybe, this will work out the way I would like it to. Let's find out. I'm basically just going to be going for little patches here and there. Maybe we'll flare that out a little bit. This is definitely a kind of ambitious idea, so we'll have to print it and try it. What's cool is so we have like a little bit of blades here and there. I'm going to go ahead and actually go to polygroups, and we can go to auto groups. I can turn on my my main move brush, which is B, M for move, and V. And then what I can do is actually turn topological on. Topological is under brush, auto masking, and topological. What I can do is kind of move some of this around, maybe select one, kind of rotate that a bit. And here's a really cool trick. If you guys would like to move a bit of a bit of your grass that you're trying to do, but you like want to move the whole thing and not a little bit, but you want to use the move brush. If you have topological turned on, you see like with my big brush, I'm able to move parts of it. If I hit S and hit 1 on the keyboard as it saves, so S and maybe 0, just hit 0. Now what you can do is you can, with the move brush and topological turned on, pick one of your models and you can move that whole thing around. So you can make small adjustments by replacing it using the move brush and topological, which is a really cool feature. So it's conjunction. It's both the topological with topological turned on and the move brush selected. So select the move brush, turn on topological, and then drop your draw size to 1. As soon as you move it beyond it, it'll start picking up just the one poly group, but hit S, hit 1, and now it'll move the whole thing. It's a neat little thing. So it's a combined effort. So let's do that. And before you ask, no, you can't hit Control and start moving that way. It doesn't duplicate like the gizmo. Just heads up. But you can use the gizmo to duplicate at that point. Now let's turn everything on. Let's turn this green. Kind of do like a dark green. Little patches. This might work depending on the size. We'll find out. If nothing else, it'll be a nice little, you know, floral decor for a render. But I kind of wanted to bunch it up a little bit. Don't want to make it too noisy. But, ideally, that would actually work, I think. Go ahead, maybe drop that down a little bit. Just thinking if I printed it this way, a lot of that would actually show up. And if it does, ooh boy, I'll be excited. In theory, as long as it's thick enough, it should be fine. It might be super brittle though. I will be honest with you. It will probably be a whole lot more brittle than you think. Yeah, there we go. Just, there we go. Go. Going nuts with the grass. Okay. Now what we're going to do, I'm actually going to go ahead and make sure that I clip off the bottom part and delete hidden and close holes. Now because everything is its own individual piece, by closing holes, it will close all the individual ones, making them solid again, and it is still embedded within the base itself, so when we merge that together, it should be one subtool. That was my plan for the grass. I mean, I think it looks a whole lot better once you add some grass in there. Let's go ahead and save it. All right. Actually, I think that's pretty cool. So what I'll do here is I'll grab this, go ahead and fill this color. And actually, let me see something real quick. Let's turn everything off. Let's grab just this guy. So again, we can come here. I'm going to kind of point that right there. I'm going to grab that insert mesh, what it is. And let's go ahead and let's see. Yeah, that doesn't really do what I wanted to do, which is okay. So if I want to save this out for future uses, what I'll do is I'll actually change the name of what this brush is. So we'll call this grass blade. And then from here, we'll go ahead, we'll make that an insert brush one more time so that we have it for sure. And then what we'll do is we'll come up to the top and then we'll go ahead and save it. And then we'll call this grass blade brush. IMM. In case we ever want to add other ones, now it's an IMM brush as well. Because again, we can now populate and we can make clumps and then we can save those clumps out and then we can bring clumps in as well. So pretty quick way to just kind of make something and then make it work for you. And if you guys are going to participate in the ZBrush Summit, that's something that I think would really benefit and help separate you from everybody else, is that you'll be able to quickly make your own brushes and utilize them as quickly and effectively as possible. And doop. There we go. Got some texture there. Turn that on. Now let's, there we go, yeah. Now what will be cool is that the base will be something separate, so what might actually work in my favor is if there's enough grass, I keep wanting to say glass, if there's enough grass blades here, then, yeah, we'll see, we'll see. I don't suspect that that will offer a lot of support, but that doesn't mean it can't. Okay, let's grab this guy. I wouldn't bet on it though. That's like a happy little wishful thinking. Let's move this rock over here. It makes no sense in the grass, actually. Not the way I had it, so we'll put that there. Same with these. I actually don't like these. So we'll just kind of get rid of that. And again, I want to move this rock. If I have the move brush with topological turned on, S1 draw size. Now I can just pick that guy up and I can move it however I see fit. Maybe push it down a little bit. Kind of bury it a little bit more if I wanted to. Or even move it over here. Actually, let's put it over here. Kind of push it down. Yeah, there we go. I think that's better. Okay. Look at that. We got a little skeleton buried in there. I thought that would be a cool little Easter egg. Just a little something something. All right. I think now we can go on to final painting, maybe add a little bit of green mossy color. So we'll make a custom paintbrush to kind of give us a little bit of funkiness. And then from there, should be pretty much it for the day. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. But yeah, let's do that. Let's do some mossy green paint color. Maybe a little bit of like, you know what, moss grows randomly. Let's make a custom brush that will also paint at the same time and add a little bit of texture, so we don't have to texture the moss. It will be its own things. So let's delete this. Let's go to sphere. There we go. Yeah, let's do this, and let's go make polymesh 3D, and let's go ahead and change the color. So moss is just essentially just like, you know, random fibers of a plant that just kind of grows however it wants to. And we want to make that illusion. So I'm going to start with the standard brush, turn off any alpha I have on there, and let's go with spray. And I actually just want to, maybe let's spray with this texture. So let's subdivide a few times. There we go. Yeah, that's actually looking pretty cool. We'll up the intensity. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of do some X's here. And actually, maybe let's go a little bit more swirly. Something like that. There we go. Yeah, I like that. And let's change the alpha. And let's do a little bit of, that looks more like some weird skin. Let's not do that. Let's do, kind of cut in a little bit, holding Alt, something like that. Okay. And we're going to take the extract tool and actually make an alpha for us. So we're going to go ahead and let's grab B, X for extract, and we're going to do extract drag rec. So we're going to grab this. Now we're going to go back in time to where the geometry was nice and clean. And the reason why we're going to do that is because the way that the timeline memory works helps define how we grab alphas. So by selecting this point in time, it remembers that this part of that mesh is nice and clean. And then when we come back here and we actually hit G to grab, and we're going to drag this out to collect this alpha, it's going to help give us a much better shape. So now if I go to the standard brush and then grab our new alpha, and maybe do drag rec, we can get something that looks a little bit like that. And if we really want to build this up, now what we can do is let's go back in time. And again, I want this to kind of be like some bubbly texture. So we need to manipulate it a little bit more. How do you select the history? Great question. You hold Control and then tap the point that you want the history. And if you notice right here, there's a little box. By holding Control and tapping there, you can turn it off or turn it on. So that's how you would do that. Great question. There we go. And now what we're going to do is if I have the standard brush with a spray brush and I have the alpha select, now I can kind of like, it can kind of build up on itself. And this kind of just looks like a bunch of stuff thrown on. But now we're going to add some color and a little bit of buildup and maybe play a little bit with the orientation of how the brush responds. You're absolutely welcome, no problem. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to open up a couple features. So today's kind of a more of advanced ZBrushing, so if I lose you, please let me know. But we're going to take this alpha brush or alpha panel and let's drag that over here. So we have some new features open. We have surface select, which is perfect. And I don't want any noise. Okay, let's leave that stuff there. Let's go back to brush. And let's go to, not orientation, let's go to modifiers. Do I want modifiers? No, where is, I think it's under stroke. Let's go down to stroke. Let's go to modifiers on stroke, there we go. And now we have a feature right here that's called no back and forth. And what this will do is, if I go back and forth with my brush, right, it's just going to build up wherever I want it, okay? Which can be pretty cool. But if I click no back and forth, when I go one way and I come back, it does not allow that topology to, doesn't allow the material to add. So it can only go one direction, not both. So when I swipe down and I come back up, it didn't add anything, come back down, add back up. This is pretty cool because a lot of times if you want it to go in one direction, but you really just want to add it quickly, then you can select no back and forth to help kind of give you the control of that stuff. Now we're going to add the intensity, and now let's add a color. So let's actually do, let's just do white for now so we have a good idea of what we're working with. Let's go to color. So now look at that. I can kind of build up that green on top of each other, and that's looking a lot more like what I want it to look like. Now, the other thing I do want to do is I do believe I want to go to samples and do build up. This is going to kind of help build up on itself. So now I'm getting something that looks a lot more like moss. There we go. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. Perfect. Back that up a little bit. Actually going to go ahead and kind of build up a section. Kind of paint something real quick. Yep, I like how that's looking. So now I'm going to go up to brush, selection, and then I'm actually going to come here, go here and hit save as. And we'll call this my IR moss brush. There we go. So now I have something that I really, really like. And now I have a moss brush. So now all I have to do is bring that up anytime that I want. So now I can add moss to things that I want, and I'm going to add the color too. So I want moss to build up in certain areas, so we're just going to kind of find crevices, and then we're going to go ahead and start building that area up. And again, I can kind of just pick some little areas. Moss would build up in more areas that are tighter, like closer together, so that way there's more moisture. So we can kind of build up areas that are connected a little bit. And even where there's a little bit on the rope. There we go. And you can see now that that's actually looking pretty good. If that color is just a little too bright, just go back over it with a little bit of a darker color. And you are good to go. But actually pretty nice to start with a little bit of a vibrant color and then work our way. And then of course too, if you want it in areas and not in others, you know, what you could do is go up to that ambient occlusion again, compute, get that mask in there that you want. Although I don't think we need to go this crazy, but you can. And then now you can make sure that it hits only certain spots that you really want it to hit. So now it won't build up on the inside, but I don't think that's necessary. There we go. So a little bit of texture. Now, of course, you might be asking, well, how is this going to print? You're going to lose a lot of texture, so we want to make sure that we build this up enough. And then, of course, too, if we ever decide to paint it, you know, that's if you remember what you did a little bit, have an idea of where the majority of that texture will be, then you'll be able to, you know, go back over with your paintbrush and emphasize it a little bit more. You're always going to lose a little bit of something. You know, I think you lose about, I would say on average, I would estimate you lose about 10 to 15% of details in most 3D prints that you do, especially FDM, you lose a lot more than that. But in resin, you got to think about the cleanup. You got to think about, you know, what kind of settings you have. You're going to lose a little bit of detail there. So if you anticipate the loss of detail, you'll actually do yourself a favor and add a little extra in there so it'll print a little bit nicer. So there we go. And I'm going to use this moss brush on this creature too, kind of give him a little bit of love. So let's go ahead and save it. Because now we're in the final stages, the tertiary forms. We're really just trying to make our character come to life a bit, you know. So let's come in here. I'm actually going to go to compute on this one for AO and get a much better mask on some areas and then like bunch up where I think it should be. You just go nuts. Let's go nuts. This might take a second. I'm gonna let it think. I tend to push my machine to like the fullest. Okay, let's save it before we lose too much of our work. Is this repeating video? What do you mean by repeating video? This is not, I mean, it's live, so you can ask questions. I'm just doing final detailing, which is it can be very repetitive, that's for sure. But I'm also doing some high processes, so there could be a little bit of lag, especially on YouTube side, which has been known to happen. Okay. Let's go and add a little bit of moss here and there. Just give them a little bit of love. My English is bad. Sorry. No, you're totally fine. I want to make sure that, you know, you guys are A, caught up with what I'm doing, and B, if there is something that's going on, I do constantly check my OBS. It seems that I'm fully connected, but detailing is very repetitive. And like I've said before a few times, and if you're new to the channel, I do big projects because I want you all to see the full scale of what happens and what goes into the project. So a lot of times, um, we'll hit stages like this where it's very repetitive and it's, unfortunately, it's, you know, detailing can be pretty boring, but also very fascinating at the same time. So, um, if you came in at a spot and I'm like repeating myself because I built a couple brushes and stuff, that's probably why. But feel free, please. You guys can always ask questions, especially if you're new here. I love taking questions. I try to answer them as best as I can. But yeah, do not worry. You are totally fine. We are just finalizing this character and then next stream will be getting him ready for 3D print. So the next stream will be me tearing this whole project apart, showing you guys 3D printing tips and tricks, how to prep properly. All that's going to be coming next week. So if that's something you're very interested in, I do that at the end of all of my projects that we do here. Because again, I want you guys to see the process. And what we did is we made a moss brush that we're now utilizing to add a little bit of inconsistent texture to our model, so that way we actually have a little bit of kind of a little bit of life and character to it. He's a bunch of rocks, um, so he wouldn't be super perfect. He'd be gross and you know grown on and lived on and all sorts of good stuff. And again, I can do all sorts of variations with my texturing, but this is like one of those things that just do a little bit here, a little bit there. That was a little bit too much. There we go. And I'm going light in some areas and darker in others. Constantly going back and forth between the two. Next week on Sunday night. Yep, every Sunday you guys can catch me here at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or Daylight Time. Uh, that's California time. So that'd be 8 o'clock on the East Coast, 9 o'clock if you're in Brazil, and nearing midnight if you're in the UK. Actually, much longer than that. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. Be 1 o'clock. Wow, that's late. But yep, that's what we'll be doing. Because I don't think we'll have enough time. But if you guys do have any questions, again, you guys can always ask. Yep. There we go. There we go. Kind of going loose. And see, you could that no back and forth has allowed me to kind of keep a very standardized look with my character without going too crazy with it. Always saw your stream and always I forget what day it is. Trust me, I know, right? See, what's funny is I actually picked this time because nobody really streamed at this time. Sundays seem to be very open. So I picked this time because yeah, it's like towards the end of the day, most people are relaxing. Uh, just a nice little get your questions going. All right. Yay! All right. There we go. Do you guys have any questions about how I built the brushes? Because I did just kind of like do a bunch of settings. And so if you want to build a brush like this, like what I'm doing, let me know because I kind of rushed a little bit of the process. Hi, I'm pretty much new to 3D printing and our company internal 3D prints always come out as gray in color, like gray resin. May I know how these polypaint textures will eventually be on the final print? So for most 3D prints in resin, it is always going to be a solid color. Uh, there are 3D printers that can print full color, but that's very expensive and um, There's only a certain company that does it, I think. But a lot of times, the poly painting that I do on my prints, I mean on my models, are mostly for visualization and color referencing. So at some point in time, what I'll do is I'll make a character sheet, and I'll be able to kind of get an idea of how the colors will be. So if I send it to paint or I paint it myself, I can pretty much just kind of see how I did it in ZBrush, and I'll have to unfortunately repeat that process. I'll have to repeat that process again in real life if I wanted to paint. That being said, of course, that's the time where the painter can go ahead and make their recommendations for and their standardizations for how it will be painted in the future, especially if you're making a bunch of prints or custom molds for production purposes. Um, if you are making 3D prints to make cast dies out of for injection mold, then a lot of these colors will be set up, and then you'll be injection molding by color at that point. But yeah, unfortunately, there's not a really simple one-to-one. So this will be more of, like I said, a visualization than anything else. Okay. Yeah, not a problem. It's a great question, by the way. I really love that question. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and add some moss to our boxes. And we're actually going to, okay, the color intensity is pretty high already. Do you want to become famous? No, I really don't. What's up, Peter? Hey, I like your UI. Yes, I will be releasing my UI for free soon. So if you guys do like my UI, I will be getting it packaged up and released soon. I promise. Is this Blender? No, this is ZBrush. This is Pixologic's channel, the makers of ZBrush, which is one of the highest industry standard 3D modeling for sculpting. Wow, I couldn't finish that sentence. So pretty much, if you are a professional sculptor, character artist, more than likely ZBrush will need to be on the list because it is industry standard. Most game studios, toys and VFX and movies and animations use ZBrush to build most. Do I mind sharing my PC specs? No, I do not, actually. I actually announced it earlier today. I have a Ryzen AMD 7, which is the 5600 series. I believe it's the third series, but that's no biggie. I have the 2080 GeForce graphics card, and I have about 48 gigs of RAM. The RAM and the CPU are the bread and butter of ZBrush, so you will definitely want to make sure that if you are building your machine to get a really good CPU, because ZBrush does not utilize the GPU except for, I believe there's a little bit of use in the rendering. But other than that, it doesn't use the GPU much at all, so any GPU you have will work. It's a weird amount of RAM. It's actually because I have two. I have. Do I have two? Yeah, it is an odd amount of RAM because I have two 16s and then two 8s ish. Yeah, something like that. Opinions are opinions, which equals opinions. Symmetry, so opinions. All right. So we're just adding a little bit of moss to this box, which again just kind of helps it sell it for what it is. Very tiny detail, but sometimes a little bit goes a long way. And I'm starting with the dark this time, getting a little bit of overgrown. Pretty much just allowing it to go wherever I really want it to go. It doesn't really matter. I'm not being too critical. But sometimes a lot goes a little way. Wait, what? Yes. I should stop being silly. No, don't stop being silly. Please do not. Be yourself. Never stop stopping being you. I mean, come on, guys. I can barely speak today, which is every Sunday. All right, let's really get some overgrowth right here. Will you proceed to Dynamesh the entire model and print it out as one big mesh, or will there be part separation? There will be part separation for sure, because in order to get this to print, I'm going to need to slice and dice it. And I will be honest, I have some pretty limited machines at my house. One day that will change, but for right now, I have a Epax X1 resin 3D printer, which is pretty tiny, so anything I do, it's about the size of a standard Elgumars or any cubic, depending on your flavor. And then I have my FDM printer. Most of this will be in resin. I'm going to basically scale it based on, I'm thinking like a 1/10 scale, you know. So, so a lot of things will be pretty small. And some of this is actually going to be a lot easier because I'll be honest with you guys. I'm going to print these Bokoblins in the miniature form as one piece, and that's going to make it really easy. I can pretty much just add little keys to the feet, print them out. They won't be super detailed texturally, but they'll have enough detail that they'll stand out for what they are. So I can print these guys pretty separate. Boxes like this, I can actually end up printing just on its own, and then the person who prints it can set it wherever they want. So it doesn't have to be set in stone. You can create your own scene. Little things like that. So yeah. How am I enjoying the streaming process for Pixologic? Seems like you've really gotten comfortable with it. I love it. Especially since right now it's the only time I have for streaming because I've been so busy with work that I haven't been able to really get my own stream schedule back on. So I appreciate all of the support that you guys have shown me coming on over to the Pixo side. Um, but yeah, no, I love teaching. I love being here and showing this stuff off. So hopefully you guys enjoyed as much as I do. I always just kind of want to bring the best of my process. And I'm always learning new things too, which is great because I've learned a lot just by getting certain questions and I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Let me try it." It's always something. What do you do for work, if you don't mind me asking? I do not. I work for Funko. I am a digital sculptor for the team, and I've been there for 2 months. Before then, I was freelancing for the last year due to the world situation, as we will gracefully put it. So essentially, I was forced to freelance, and then I was able to find studio work, and I love it. So it's super great. Uh, The piece loses details when it is decimated for resin printing. Yes, you will lose some, but there are some tricks that I can show you that will allow you to keep as much detail as possible. There's a few new tools like Contrast Slider and Contrast Delta and Contrast Target, which are great brushes that help punch detail a little bit more, especially when you shrink it down. I make a lot of miniatures and cartoony stuff generally, trying to go more realistic. Nice, nice. I kind of take realism and stylize and I mash them together, and whatever I get, that's my style. Was wondering if you have a good gauge for thickness of mesh when you sculpt for 3D printing. Yes, I do. I also measure, and I will be showing you guys that, but essentially, like, let me save this real quick because I don't want to save the measurements just yet. But let's go ahead and save it real quick. And let's go to the sphere real quick. So there's a great way that you can measure to ensure that you are able to find the thickness of any subtool. And while I show you that real quick, yes, I do have an Instagram. I have quite a few socials, including a Discord where people can come and hang out and be themselves and introduce themselves as artists. Um, there we have a lounge where people can come in, hang out, and there's a few very talented artists who love to help teach as well. And I'm in there a few times a week. So if you ever have questions or you need anything, you can always tag me, tag anybody else. And a lot of times, if I can't answer right away, there's somebody else who like comes in with the answer. So here's a link to my socials. Hey, what's up, MJ Sculpts? Sculpt is looking awesome. Great moss brush. Thank you so much. We built it live here. So, okay, let's say we want to quickly measure in ZBrush, right? That's what we're going to be, when we need to understand the thickness of something. Well, if we take our gizmo, right, and then we hit Y, we're presented with a transpose brush, as most of you know. If I take this and I drag this out and hold Shift to get a straight line, it'll tell me at the top that it's almost 2 units. But what does that mean? Hey, what's up, Slump? How you doing? The units just means units. It can be millimeters, it can be inches, it can be feet, it can be meters. Majority of the time, if you're working with 3D printing, always go metric, always go millimeters. It's going to save you a ton of problems. So we're actually going to put the center. And what I like to do to set scene scale is I like to go ahead and quickly just bring in a cube. It doesn't matter. Just bring in a cube, and for funsies, we're going to go ahead and actually shrink it down just so it's a little bit smaller than our sphere. And what we're going to do is call this 1 inch, okay? And it's as simple as going up to Z plugin, going down to blah, 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 not subtool master. Geez, there you go. Scale master. And then what we're going to do is, with the subtool selected, and the reason why we have a cube is because it's even on all sides, is we're going to hit set scene scale, and you'll be presented with options. Millimeter is what you want to pick, but again, you can pick centimeter, feet, inches, whichever works for you. I'm going to go ahead and pick millimeter, and now we're going to resize this, okay? Because right now it's saying that this cube is less than 1 millimeter, and that's no good. So we're going to pick the x-axis, and we're going to type in 25.4, which is equal to 1 inch, which is how I understand most things, because here in America we use the imperial system, mainly, loosely, the metric system, but it's a good conversion tactic to know that if I would need to take 4 inches and make it millimeters, you take 4 inches, multiply it by 25.4, and that'll give you the metric equivalent, and vice versa. If you need to figure out what 256 millimeters is in inches, you then just divide by 25.4, which gives you what you need. The Pinky and Brain is awesome. Thank you so much. Actually, real quick, honesty, the brain is mine, but Pinky is done by a friend of mine who goes by Inspired, and great artist. We collaborated on that, which is super, super cool. So thank you so much. But yeah, that was a collaboration, and we both share it, so definitely check him out as well. He's also in the Discord. But now that we have 25.4, we're going to hit Resize Subtool, and it's going to scale the world up for you. And now we hit F, and then we go to Z plugin, hit set scene scale one more time. We now notice that it is set to 25.4 millimeter, which is what we need. Now, anything that comes into contact with this subtool is going to basically be grounded in the 1 inch margin. Now what we could do is we can hit W for a gizmo, Y, we can grab a point, come across and say from here to here is 15.87 millimeter. I wish I learned metric system first. You and me both, actually. I find the metric system to be far more accurate than imperial. But, alas, it's what we've learned. And the metric system is pretty easy to pick up. If you remember the 25.4 rule as being that's equivalent to 1 inch, it's really easy to bounce back and forth between the two with the calculator. So, and now what we can do, right, is we can come in here and we can say, oh, what is the thickness of something? If we take this subtool, and let's say it's really thin, I can then take that gizmo, grab one point, start stretching it out, hold shift, get a straight depth, so now it's from one end to another, and that's telling me that it's 5.3 millimeters thick, which is perfect. That's printable. Oh yeah, it's way easier by my stupid handling things than Imperial. Where are these numbers on the screen? Yeah, I know, it gets pretty crazy, right? But the numbers are, it's going to be, I'm trying to see if I can zoom in on it. So if I take this measurement right here, we're going to do this real quick. Right up here at the top left, I don't know if you can see that. That's where these numbers are on the screen. Right at the top, it will tell you transpose line, click to reposition, press shift, etc., etc. Anytime you do some sort of, whoo, that's terrible. Anytime you do some sort of measurements, it's right up here at that top. Yeah, no problem. You got it. So that's how we can tell. So when we get to this guy, for example, like right now, if I needed to figure out the thickness of one of these brass blades, which is going to be the challenge of printing, if I isolate, let's go ahead and just quickly auto groups so we can isolate one piece and I know they're the same. Oops. Let's grab this. There we go. Now what I could do is I can quickly kind of come in here and measure and see based on this scene with how we set, this is 0.01 millimeter, this won't print. But that's not the scene scale for this model. That was just an example, so we'd have to adjust to make sure that it's correct. And ideally, my idea is that when I print this base, it's going to be printed like this, upside down, because there'll be resin. So you imagine that the vat is right here. I'm sorry, the build plate's right here, the vat's down at the bottom. And basically what will end up happening is when it prints, it'll be printing in this position, and all the gravity will be pointing down, right? All the gravity will be facing this way. So ideally, a lot of this stuff will print without any supports. Ideally. We will find out soon enough. I like to kind of push how something's going to be. So, okay, let's go back here real quick, and we're going to go ahead and start adding in a little bit more moss to some of these areas. Because again, you know, they're in kind of like a little tropical area, I would imagine. Ish. I assume, I mean, you know. I think Hyrule is kind of tropical. It's like kind of everything, isn't it? There we go. And there would be moss on the ropes. So we can make this one a little bit more. And of course, too, we'll make it a little bit darker because we'll have different colors. So again, there we go. And what's pretty cool too is we can also, you know, take this moss brush. We can use a little bit of brown and maybe try to print a little bit more with some different colors. We can kind of stack it because, you know, moss might have a little bit of like dirty brown to it on top of some green. So again, just kind of get to play around a little bit. So we can kind of come in here like such and switch it and start adding some of that green on there a little bit. And again, build up some areas, not others. There we go. Now you do want to be careful not to overdo your texturing, um, but we do need to be a little bit more aggressive with it, just simply because when it prints, a lot of this will go away, especially the tertiary forms. It's just not going to show up the way you think. So how many of you guys are going to be doing the ZBrush sculpt off? Do we have anybody who's like really excited? Are you there for the summit? Maybe? Maybe? This may be a stupid question. First off, no such thing here. You're totally fine. Ask any question. Do not worry. I am still learning, but are these in Dynamesh or did you retopo them first? I'm trying to learn ZBrush. Saucy TV, great question. I will tell you that most of the stuff is just ZRemeshed. I don't work in Dynamesh on final forms. I work in subdivisions when it comes to final details and final forms. But I usually start off in Dynamesh, get my forms and everything blocked out, and then I move to ZRemesher. So most of everything here that you'll see, I'll actually set it all to low so we don't break the bank on this render. But when you render, you'll see that everything here is mostly 100% actually of it is all ZRemeshed. But that's a great question. So you never have to be afraid to ask a question here. Safe zone. Promise. I wish I was good enough to do it. Totally understandable, but you'll get there. Doesn't even hurt. Me. Already signed up, MJ. Ryan, super excited. Yay! Awesome. No, thank you so much. No, you guys are awesome. All right. Well, I am super glad that you guys are going to be joining. There's some people here going to do it. I'm going to be doing it as well. But the reason why I brought it up wasn't just because I wanted to call a bunch of people out. The reason why I brought it up is because a couple weeks, once they announce the theme, I'm already putting together at least 1 or 2 live streams on my own, and we can do it here as well, so I'm not excluding anybody. But I want to cover a little bit of tips and tricks about how to kind of prep for a speed sculpt of the caliber that they'll be asking, because as far as I'm aware, the rules are you'll be given 3 hours. Anybody can join, all levels welcome. 3 hours to sculpt the theme, and everything has to be done and rendered within ZBrush. So there's a lot of tricks and ways to make it so that you can know A, you're on track, and then B, what to focus on, what not to focus on. It's kind of hard, but at the end of the day, if this is your first time joining, then it'll be really helpful. Last year, there's a lot of stuff that I did that really helped me, but there are things I could do to improve, as we always can. So, just going to say, if you guys are interested in that, please let me know, and we're going to get going to that. So, as soon as the theme is announced, but I cannot talk about the theme. Once the theme's announced, you kind of have to kind of like conceptualize your own ideas. But we can do tips and tricks that talk about how to approach it. So stay tuned to that. Oh, dude. For you and ever. I love it. Thank you so much. You guys are just freaking awesome. I love hanging out with you guys. It's every Sunday I'm like, yay, I can't wait. Super cool. So yeah, so let me know if you guys are interested in that. We will be doing that. And if you guys have any render questions in ZBrush, get them ready. Get them ready. We're gonna go over some stuff. There's a lot that you can do in ZBrush. I guarantee it. That's that slogan for that suit commercial. You're gonna like the way you look. I guarantee it. I just I just hijacked them. Yeah, it's probably a local thing. All right. Okay. The other thing we can do too is when if we well, let's go mask by cavity at let's go like something like that. There we go. Yeah, something like that. Perfect. I'm gonna get just some darker wood planks. It looks a little plain. Mask by cavity at like what do we say like flip that over. Woo, that's not good. What do we do here? Mask by cavity by 2% intensity. So that's what we need to do here. uh, he didn't like the way they showed up the door. that is that is freaking awesome. Thank you for that. That just made my day. Okay, there we go. Just kind of getting a little bit of a different color here. There we go. We're gonna go ahead and mask by cavity at 2. Invert that, maybe soften it a little bit. Just give it a little bit more. Okay. Just going with a little bit of a different wood vibe here. Okay. Get some of that stuff going. Oh, it's doing that thing again. There we go. Invert that. Let's go to. My brain is filled with random useless information. Dude, don't even worry, man. Because, like, for me, like, I don't know. I think of stuff like that all the time. There we go. Just a little bit of different color. Yeah, there we go. Again, so we can end up playing with a lot of this stuff pretty quickly. That moss brush a little bit more. There we go. Actually take some of this brown here. Let's take some of that green. Let's add a little bit more mossy to it. We'll have to turn around and actually end up maybe fixing the rest of it, but I think this is looking pretty good. Definitely gonna add a little bit of that grassy, greeny moss color. Yeah, we're almost done, guys. We're almost done with this one. There we go. Is there any courses or videos you would recommend to learn how to add the details you have on the wooden boards? It seems like the details you have on them don't mess with the poly count. I'd like to learn it. Absolutely. Well, first thing is actually, if you watch the very last video that I did last week, just go to Pixologic and type in Ian Pixologic. That will help. Actually, I could drop that video here too. But essentially, you can also go to ZBrush Classroom. They have a bunch of stuff there too. But I can pretty much show you what I did as well so that you can do it without any problems whatsoever. But if you go to Pixologic, go to Pixologic, and then they have a community, they have Learn ZBrush, you have free Z Classroom training. There's a bunch of stuff in here. All you have to do is log in and account's free, even if you don't have ZBrush, just create an account and then you can access and you can learn that stuff. Of course, it helps to have ZBrush if you're trying to learn it. And then what I had done, so if we take a look at my if we take a look at my geometry here, I'm going to actually reconstruct this because we had deleted it. This is my underlining mesh. It is subdivided. So I just made sure that the mesh itself has a nice frame to it. Has a good amount of edge loops and a good amount of poly count. So that way, when I subdivide up, those edge loops get closer and closer together, which holds detail even better. Last stream, what I did, and I can pull that information for you as well. If you just go to YouTube real quick, we'll type in Pixologic with so many O's and Ian. Bloop. So if you go to YouTube and type in Pixologic Ian, you get a ton of my videos that I've done. And the very last one that I did, which is right here, streamed 6 days ago. This one, I actually cover that part here, where I actually break through how that is. So feel free to go to this video and you could take a look. I think it's about halfway through, about an hour in, and I show you exactly how I prepped the mesh so that we could subdivide with perfect ease and get a good amount of details. Now, if you zoom all the way in, you'll see that the details just look like a bunch of random noise. A lot of the detailing that I'm doing is actually good from afar. So, you are so welcome. Absolutely. But a lot of times, if we take a look at the base, you know, it's just learning to use the tools to the best of their advantage and utilizing stuff like color and all the other good stuff to get you what you want. And what's really cool too, let's take this box for a second, okay? And I want to change the color of this, and this will be the last thing I show before we go here, because it's wrapping up on 8 o'clock, which is so crazy. That's 3 hours, like. We're going to go ahead and change the color of this because it's too bright for my likeness. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save because we've already crashed once due to my genius. So we're going to go ahead and go to Polypaint, and we're going to go ahead and say adjust colors. Now this will bring up a new window, and it's a little hard to see, but essentially we have a bunch of different sliders that control RGB colors individually, red, blue, green, the gamma version of that, the intensity, and also the contrast, saturation, intensity, and hue. So we have really good control. We can even come in and mask off a certain color like this and say, I want to mask off this. I also want to mask off, nope, none of that. So turn that bad boy off. And we can actually go ahead and just reset it if it's not giving you what you want. We can go ahead and mask something like that. Great. And now what I can do with it masked off is I can start adjusting the saturation of the color, make it a little bit darker, something like that. Maybe adjust the hue a little bit more. And we can also do maybe a little bit of a red contrast, blue contrast. Just play with the contrast. And that might be a little too... Now Control Z doesn't work too well here, so if you get a little bit too crazy, just reset it. But once you like something like that, now you can make that adjustment. Now that's a little bit too bland, so I'm going to go ahead and Control Z that, and we'll try it again. You can also work with layers, but you could just hit reset, and you can keep playing with it until you find something that you like. For me, I'm going to go a little bit darker here. I think I just want to go a little bit more dark. Pump up the contrast of the stuff, the full. Let's do that. Something like that might be a little bit helpful. And we can go in there and make more adjustments if needed. Oh wow, that's insane. Never knew that function existed. Yep. Yeah, it's super awesome. It's That's what I'm here for. Just blow your mind. So you could just keep finding something that you like. Of course, gamma will really help you kind of like gamma, think of it as brightness. You know, that's, and 0 is not the 1 is where you want it to be. So you can make that a little bit more like that. Just find something that you like, which can take a little bit of time. Loop. So something like that, just a little bit different of a box color, and you're good to go. And you don't even need to really apply that. It's already set in stone. So you're fine there. All right, let's do a few more quick adjustments with the color, and then that is it for the day. I'm gonna go to adjust, hit frame up here, and we're gonna do the kind of the same thing. So for me, this is a really great way to note when you want to get, if you want to get color on it really quickly, but you don't want to worry about like exact poly painting, you have the freedom to kind of quickly get something the way you want it to be. So intensity a little bit. There we go. So something like that. There we go. All right. So this project is, I mean, there might be some stuff I might like pedantically nitpick a little bit, but for the most part, this is the statue as it is. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's pretty massive. Let's just do a quick render to kind of just show you like quickly in 5 minutes how to get a decent render in ZBrush, and then that will be it. I know I just said the color thing was going to be the last thing, but then I lied to you, and now I'm doing a render. So so let's turn on perspective, let's turn on 85, let's turn on the floor, and we're just going to go ahead and do a simple framing by hitting F. I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift R, which will do a basic render, and this is what most likely you'll notice when it renders the first time, and you're like thinking, well, that's terrible. So we forgive you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. So let's go ahead and make a few adjustments real quick. And what we're going to do is actually going to hide a lot of the stuff here. We're going to open up the light panel, which is right here, just dragged over to my left side. And I like to mess with the very first light as like the main fill light, and then I like to mess with the second light as a nice rim light. But I like to do the rim light first. So I'm going to go to the second light here. I'm going to turn this on. I'm going to put it kind of in the center high. Think of like the sky and how it hits you in the face. I'm going to tap that, which is going to send it towards the back. Make it beautiful button, exactly. And then I'm going to increase that intensity by about 1 to 1.5. I'm going to go ahead and hit render. Now here's a cool thing. If you render your scene in one position and you don't change that position, your render time is a little bit faster. So it's a nice way to make sure that it is, like, don't move it once you start setting renders. It's very helpful. Now I'm going to turn off that light. We're going to turn on the main light, and we're going to do kind of again that like sky high. So we're going to have the rim light and the fill light in similar directions, as if like the sun is coming from that way. Okay, not too bad. We can always, again, maybe put it a little bit more front facing. Now this is pretty intense with what's going on, so hopefully the stream isn't skipping like a madman. I love the song. All right, great. So pretty decent here. I'm actually going to go to that. Now I'm going to go to that rim light. Let's try it one more time with the rim, and let's call it and see what we get. Okay, not too bad. We're getting some pretty decent lighting. Now, what we're going to do, and I'm just going to mess with those two right there. We can get really crazy, but this will be a simple two-light setup. We can even adjust that rim light to go behind just a little bit more, just so we get a little bit of a little cut action. And let's see. Okay, not too bad. But we still have too harsh of shadows. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the Render tab, which is right up here next to Preferences, Render, drag it over here. And now the first thing I do is BPR shadow. I drop this down to like 0.65. And then the F strength, I drop this down to like 0.85. And these are numbers you can start with and then adjust according. And then the angle, I change this to about 40. Seems to be a nice 40, 45, maybe 35 to 45 is a good number to work with. Raise, that's how many times that's light bouncing. We'll get into that later. We're just going to go ahead and adjust the shadows. So notice how harsh they are right now. And then what we'll end up doing is seeing a nice softer, and this right now is just looking pretty nice. We can do one more thing, and this will give us a pretty cool still. And that is, we're going to go to BPR filters. We're going to turn on the F1 by hitting this little dot. We're going to go to filter noise. We're going to come on down. We're going to do overlay radial, modifiers. Now notice that when I adjust the filter stuff, it adjusts on the fly, which is really, really cool. So we can get something that looks like that. And then we can go to F3, which is sharpen, and then turn that on so we get a little bit sharper. F2 is a bit of a blur. We're going to turn that on, and I'm going to replace that with material shading. And then I'm going to give a texture of a really dark, like either, I like to do matte caps typically because I don't want the light to affect it too much. So maybe matte cap gorilla, or no, that might be a little too much. Maybe the metal. Okay. And then the last one is I turn on Orton, which brings back a little bit of that brightness. And now here is our render. So pretty simple, nice, just kind of shows off the model. Then you could do a turntable, and life is pretty good. So just like how to make something look pretty decent in a few minutes. And then, of course, you find your angle. So hopefully that is helpful for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. I'll probably render out this turntable, and then I'll focus on another render during the week that's a little bit more high-end. But, yep. All right, guys, that is it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I love these Sundays. Hopefully you guys enjoy them as well. Always happy for you to bring your questions, anything ZBrush related, whether it be how do I even start in ZBrush to how do I make my own custom brushes and, you know, save them out for future progress, to anatomy, to whatever question you have. Bring it. Always happy to try to answer it as best I can. And again, if I can't answer your question, I'll try to point you in the proper resource. So again, guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all your help in answering my questions. I hope you have an amazing evening. I will be here every Sunday from now on. Much love. Thank you so much, Ozzy TV. I really appreciate that. All right, you guys take it easy. Thank you so much, Ryan, Dosh, guys, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy your work week. And again, if you would like to pop in my Discord real quick, you want to hang out with me, you guys can come here. Or just follow me on my socials, and I will be dropping that UI soon. Alright, guys, that is it, and I'll catch you later! Bye, 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 bye.